The way that these people speak about their kids in these groups is insane. They're literally like, you need to take their phone away, you need to remove their internet access, like, because they're just trying to manipulate you into forcing you to support this, and it's important for you to call their bluff. Like, they are so intensely abusive. It's crazy. Now that we are done with the recent legislative break, I guess, we are now back to the whole introducing a bunch of anti-trans bills across the country. As, you know, they're staggering back in. These different states are starting back up with their legislative sessions. So Ohio currently considering a trans ban that's basically like banning trans people in sports, and so all in one, it's doing that, and it's a ban on gender-affirming care for minors, I believe, and it's going to suggest alternate treatments such as witch doctors and conversion therapy. So before we go too much further, I just want to say, hit the like button if you're enjoying the content. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell and maybe clicking all notifications to get notifications for the channel. Also consider checking out my brand new merch store, which just launched. There's going to be a link down in the description. And you can also check out my Patreon, where there are some promo deals for patrons if you want to maybe get a deal on some of your merchandise. So thank you very much for watching the content. Hope you continue to enjoy. It's a hearing from the Ohio Senate Government Oversight Committee. They convened to hear House Bill 68, which would ban gender-affirming care for trans youth. It would force them into medical detransition by removing them from medications that they're currently on. Like, so this one does not have a grandfather clause that would prevent people from being taken off of medication that they are already approved to be on. Yeah, they're convening to discuss a bill that is going to both ban trans-affirming care for youth, force them to detransition, and ban trans women from women's sports. A right-wing pastor... Okay, so why is it that Representative... Okay, I do feel... Okay, so it's one thing for you to have a religion and to run for public office. I don't think that that necessarily inherently represents a conflict of interest as it relates to the separation of church and state. But if you are a literal pastor, I don't know why you're allowed to hold office. I do feel like that should maybe be a disqualifying factor. A right-wing pastor known for practicing conversion therapy, Representative Gary Click, is behind this latest effort in a series of attempts to enact trans restrictions in Ohio. This hearing is designated Proponents-only, which features testimonies only from those who support the bill. And the proponents who spoke testified that family rejection, addiction counseling, and even conversion therapy might be the right options to treat trans people. And they relied on retired pharmacists and fringe doctors to justify these bans. Right, no one holding them accountable, of course, that's the problem. The bill has already passed the Ohio House of Representatives. It's been proposed by Gary Click. It's one of several bills targeting trans and queer people in the state. There is also a public drag ban that they're considering, and a ban on trans students in college bathroom. Presumably they would revoke funding or something from schools that allowed trans people to use the appropriate restrooms. Republicans have run on trans issues, and they lost in several school board races across the state of Ohio. There are no exceptions for gender-affirming care in the severe dysphoria. There's no alternate treatments presented in the bill, and it would even pull trans youth off of their medication, as we discussed earlier. The hearing included testimonies from several members of the small group of political detransitioners and social media influencers who frequently travel between state hearings to oppose gender-affirming care, similar to the ex-gay movement. Like, they would do the same thing where they had like a couple people who were quote-unquote success stories. Like, oh, we successfully deconverted these ones. And then just like parade them everywhere. They fly all around the country. And to be clear, we did cover the fact that that process of these detransitioners being paraded across the country, that is being bankrolled by a very specific billionaire, and they may be being paid themselves. Like, it's not just the hotels and stuff. It's possible that they're just being paid straight up. Detransitioners and trans regretters, including Chloe Cole, Prisha Mosley, and Corinna Cohn, they spoke at this hearing. Riley Gaines also made an appearance. She tied for 5th place against Leah Thomas. The reasons for detransitioning most commonly do not stem from a lack of trans identity, but rather from parental pressure, employment challenges, or social stigma. Like, most people who detransition don't do it because they renounce that they're trans, right? And also, apparently, one of the detransitioners who testified made this point without realizing it. Richard Anumene, who is suing Kaiser Permanente for providing him gender-affirming care as an adult, testified that he faced immense family pressure after transitioning at the age of 20. I wonder if this is the guy who was in the Detrans documentary that we responded to. He states he experienced a wonderful transition early on. However, he was, quote, convinced to return to presenting as a man due to rejection by his father as well as economic difficulties, in line with recent studies showing that trans people experience heightened rates of poverty. Wow, amazing. Numerous other witnesses suggested that family rejection and non-affirmation could be a way to stop trans people from being trans. Like, you can't reward this behavior kind of rhetoric. Not to mention that, yeah, all of the success stories seem to be like such clearly repressed and traumatized people. Like, they just don't seem comfortable in the situation that they're in currently. Another detransitioner, Morgan Keller, testified for the first time that she transitioned due to being, quote, seduced by gender ideology and a belief that her gender identity was a, quote, delusion. She left out the important part about how when she's posted online about this at the time, she stated that the actual reason she detransitioned was because she had a religious experience in a dream where God told her she was on the wrong path. Seems like a very normal reason to do something. And she like stopped tea cold turkey and stuff. I was reading it earlier. One of the most extreme testimonies came from Jeanette Cooper, who rejected her own child's trans identity and who lost custody to the child's father after he testified that Cooper's actions led to the mental and emotional harm of their child. Cooper revealed that she leads a group of, quote, thousands of parents who do not affirm their transgender children's gender identities, promoting this form of rejection as a way to deter being trans. The way that these people speak about their kids in these groups is insane. They're literally like, if your kid is saying that they're suicidal, you need to double down and like you need to take their phone away. You need to remove their internet access, like, because they're just trying to manipulate you into forcing you to support this. And it's important for you to call their bluff. Like, they are so intensely abusive. It's crazy. And also, like, yeah, a way to reveal your bias. Like, I'm a leader of a group of, quote, thousands of parents who like literally use rejection and like social harm as a way to deter their kids from identifying as trans. Later, when she asked how people with gender dysphoria should be treated, she stated that it must be treated, quote, like an addiction. However, obviously there's no evidence that being trans is like an addiction. You know, when we start medication, a lot of the time we tend to stay on it, and that's because it is effective at resolving our distress for the most part. But yeah, it's pretty shit to portray that like an addiction. But I think that these kind of people are also the type of folks who would be against antidepressants. Like, they're the same type of folks who are like, you can't rely on this like substance to get you through. Like, aren't you just another drug addict? Like, no, Brenda, like, I need my brain chemicals to do the thing that they're supposed to do, please. Exactly, yes, diabetics are just addicted to insulin. Precisely. Even people who think of themselves as good will tell an addict to just stop being an addict because they're a problem. They'll do the same thing to trans people and others because you're a problem they can't fix. So they experience cognitive dissonance and tell their loved ones just to be better. They have no idea what that can entail. Yeah, just stop, bro. Just stop being an addict or just stop being trans. Like, can't you just be a feminine man? Why do you have to transition? Are you sure you're not just gay? It is funny that they call us addicts when 90% of transphobes I've met talk more about trans people than actual trans people. That's the other thing too. They're like, oh wow, you know, you guys are like so weird in this clique of people who are so close together, and like, it's so weird how much you talk about being trans, and like, wow, it's your whole life. And it's like, yeah, online when we are communing about being trans, yeah, of course we're talking about it in those communities. We're talking about it a lot. Look at us offline, and most of us have jobs where we cannot be out, or we have jobs where we are stealth. Like, we are like hiding our identities from our families. Like, we're avoiding seeing people because we don't want them to notice that we started hormones. Like, we are like going to the library and like playing video games and like doing all kinds of other things that don't necessarily involve being trans. Like, we can't do that all the time. We have other stuff going on. But transphobes basically make it their job. Like, they spend so much time on this. They basically have made it their career to talk about us all the time. And it's super, super strange. In some places, some people like literally made it their career. Like, actually, it's like the thing that they do is go around talking smack on trans people and like getting paid for it. So of course the Alliance Defending Freedom was there. They have, obviously that's the organization that has drafted a lot of the anti-trans laws that are then being copy-pasted across the country. Our current Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, used to be a lawyer for the Alliance Defending Freedom, and they defend like the Creationist Museum from Ken Ham. Like, they try to limit abortion rights, and like in this case are testifying that banning trans care does not violate the organization's, quote, parental rights stance. The idea that parents have the right to make medical decisions for their kids, I guess, because the ban only targets puberty blockers, hormone therapy, and surgery for trans youth. When asked what was left for these youth, he claimed that, quote, therapy was the best way to treat them. They want to do conversion therapy. Like, they push a variety of forms of conversion therapy. They used to be allied with Exodus International, which is the ex-gay movement from the 90s and early 2000s. Yeah, of course, interestingly, Mike Johnson, part of that partnership. There's no evidence that conversion therapy is a good treatment for trans people. Plenty of evidence that it does harm. Gender-affirming care has lots of evidence. We went through like a ton of studies recently discussing the benefits of transition for trans youth. Several proponents were brought in to testify. These proponents included fringe medical practitioners such as Ohio pharmacist Kent Zellner, who resigned as a pharmacist after refusing to fill Plan B prescriptions in Yellow Springs, Ohio. Great reputation there. Cynthia Millen, a woman often presented as a, quote, USA swimming official, who has stated that, quote, predators love Planned Parenthood, and that gay people should practice chastity, also testified. And then Riley Gaines showed up to support the bill because of the sports ban thing. Following the hearing, Riley Gaines announced to her followers that she played a major role in banning trans women from women's chess. That was in the UK, I think, that they started all that nonsense, wasn't it? No. It was the UK Chess League that said, no, we're not going to ban trans women. Good on them. That was the main chunk of it, is it like there was this hearing, a bunch of proponents for the bill, a bunch of people speaking in support of the bill. Anti-trans policies, however, are not particularly popular in Ohio. Like 70% of school board candidates who ran on trans issues and the Moms for Liberty platform lost. However, sources indicate that Republicans intend to push this bill through anyway. And yeah, we'll have to see. There will be another hearing that is the opposition, the opponents, but it's going to be announced at a later date. So we don't even know when, if that's going to happen, if they don't come up with some reason to not hold it anyway, just to make us feel even worse about the fact that we don't. I mean, it doesn't matter what gets said during the opponent hearing is the unfortunate part. If the Republicans are dead set on passing it, if they don't have the governorship, so many of these state legislatures have been rigged up so that there is a veto-proof majority. And I would not be surprised if Ohio had that, or if they just had a Republican governor. I'm actually not sure, and I don't care to know. Anyway, so that's Ohio trans ban. Merry holidays and Happy New Year to my patrons and potential future patrons. Today, I would love to thank Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvag, Amanda B., Michelle Frateroli, Wellington Marcus, Michelle Winter, Danielle McDonald, DZXN, Suzanne Maynard, Spooky Heather Sylvia, Past Null Infinity, Jamie Jam, Nova, Elizabeth Bartell, Sojo, Sarah A., Kevin Young, Athiet, Celeste, Desi Quiche, Liam Hodgson, and Mr. Atheist.